earbuds in, hanging out with John Jay. Watch your troubles drifting away. Something planted in your ears, tears are in your eyes. You can't hear your doorbell ring, you can't hear your baby cry.
Something Planet Podcast, episode number 561. Welcome to it. I'm your host, John Jay. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Appreciate all the new subscribers. We're doing a special episode today. I brought a journalist from the Bradenton Times to speak about free speech and this weird new fucking climate that we're in. Please welcome to the show, Mitch Maley, everybody.
Hey, thanks for having me, John.
You are here. Thank you for, thanks for making the trip up here. I know you're a busy guy, writing articles, about to be fired at any moment. It's a weird new time. Like last week? What was it, 2 weeks now? Almost 2 weeks now. The Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk was murdered in broad daylight, and everyone seemed to have an opinion on that, and then everyone seemed to get way into their feelings about said opinions. We're talking about it today. You wrote an article about it. What was the title of the article?
The Weaponization of Charlie Kirk.
Now that, so I'm definitely relating with that because it just feels different than, because we have tragedies in this country all the fucking time, you know? And this one feels different. Do you have any theories about why this one feels so different?
Yeah, I think at a minimum, there's that old saying, I think it was coined by Rahm Emanuel during the financial crisis of 2008,
right.
Never let a catastrophe go to waste.
Yeah.
And I think that there was this immediate response by the Trump administration to co-opt it into momentum that they could use to implement maybe some of the less palatable policies that they have on deck.
Right. And, they didn't have a lot of momentum before that on really any subject or any policy.
Right.
They have the approval ratings are pretty dismal at this point. So
I don't even think it's limited to free speech. I think the immediate thing that I saw from members within the administration, let's start with the president. The president comes out at 3:05 p.m. And at this point, we have nothing but some person.
And this is the day of the
September 10th.
Yeah.
So we have nothing but some what they call person of interest video stills from security cameras. That's all we had. We knew nothing at this point.
The only thing I had seen at that point was the police dragging around some old man with his pants out of his ankles.
We had two things. It was very strange.
He was screaming, "I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything."
No, at first he said, "I did it."
I think, that was what it was reported. He said I did it. But then once they had him in the handcuffs, he was like, "I didn't, leave me alone. I didn't do anything."
Yeah, so it turns out he was kind of a political crank that lived in that area and was very known to be at really any kind of political event, city council, those sort of things. And then you also had a guy on campus who had a pellet gun but it was like a rifle-styled pellet gun.
Like one of those pump up the air rifle things? Yeah.
So then he got detained.
Well, it's an open carry campus, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Okay, so anybody could carry an air rifle if they want.
So twice they announced, FBI Director Kash Patel announced, "We've got our guy."
Right.
Announced via tweet, which is just kind of wild.
It is. Well, I mean, I guess that's just kind of the new normal.
It never has been.
It never has been. But
we have a social media influencer,
Yeah.
So, for the most part, as an FBI
we have podcasters
director.
and news anchors and such running the country.
So
right
different
now.
world.
So it's a different world.
So we have all those things happen, but then at 3:05 p.m.
Didn't they have was that true? They pinged the geolocation. He was like having lunch at like an Italian
He was
restaurant?
having lunch at a very posh restaurant.
Yeah.
Before they opened, they did a special seating for him, and he flies on a private jet that he had a new one commissioned because the other one apparently wasn't.
It's a trash private jet. Yeah, it's not good enough.
So he regularly flies to sporting events and different things in a private jet. So very posh lifestyle.
Yeah.
But we have the president. I think most importantly here, 3:05 p.m., the president comes on the air and announces this was done by the left. They.
Right. The evil Democrats or whatever.
And that's a theme that goes on through this. But he grabs onto that, and then everybody from the top down, particularly throughout that podcast universe, they seize the opportunity to say they want us all dead. There's no talking with them.
Right.
There's no kumbaya anymore. They want war. We didn't want it this way, but...
Right, and there was a lot of calls for civil war. I saw there were, and not. I don't think the Orange Man actually said civil war, but a lot of people on the right called for civil war, which, by the way, is not protected First Amendment free speech.
No, it is not.
That is not protected by the First Amendment. Calling for violence is not protected speech.
Well,
correct?
keep in mind, too, because this becomes important when we talk about what Jimmy Kimmel did. Keep in mind that what FCC Director Carr actually said was the reason he should be dealt with was he fed into this narrative that the shooter came from the right. The president immediately fed into the narrative that he came from the left.
And at this point, nobody knows. Even at this point now, as we're recording this, like nobody really knows exactly what the ideology was.
Well, I'll tell you, the most we know is that journalist Ken Klippenstein in his Substack was able to access and go through a year's worth of that Discord chat that they were talking about, that group chat. And the big takeaway, I didn't read the entire cachet, but I read his article about it. And the big takeaway was there was no politics whatsoever in that entire discussion in the platform that he was supposedly radicalized with trans ideology or something.
Right.
There was no political discussion. So there doesn't seem to be, and the only thing we got, his mother, and this was seized on by the Utah governor, his mother said he had started to become more political recently and seemed to be moving left. But you got to understand, the mother, the father, the grandmother said, just so you know, we're MAGA, right?
Right.
Conservative, wealthy conservative Utah family. The kid is, the best understanding I have is today, identified as bisexual.
Okay.
Was in a relationship with a male roommate who was in the process of transitioning. It was how they described it.
Okay.
This was said to be an enormous source of stress between him and his father.
Okay, I would imagine that. Utah, I can imagine it. You know, I think, you know, you're a father, right? And you have kids that are around this age.
I have one son who's just like 6 months younger than the.
Okay, yeah. So you're in this same kind of boat with parenting the younger generation. So this kind of talk is, I mean, I feel like it's pretty normal. I don't have any kids, but I got a lot of friends with kids, but. I feel, like the transitioning and being bisexual and stuff. It's like very normal with this generation, very normalized thing, right? Yeah,
bisexuality, far more than even like, I've got nieces and nephews that are, say, 10 years younger or older, than my son, and certainly far more than then. So so very different, but I don't imagine in Utah it's as easy as it would be, say, in St. Petersburg.
Right. St. Petersburg is a different place than any place in Utah for sure.
So I think the big takeaway from that is this is probably a kid who was deeply unhappy on some level and going through a very difficult time with his relationship with his father, probably his mother as well, and a family that really didn't approve of his sexuality. And then you had someone who really did not express anything I would associate with tolerance towards homosexuality or transgenderism. Right. So it seems like he took whatever this was. And again, he's alleged at this point. It seems like, that was the impetus for this act of violence. Not a political statement, but I hate what you're saying about this thing that impacts me, and I'm going to act on that.
Right. More of a mentally ill person concentrating on the loudest opposition voice in the room, basically.
That's seems like the most likely takeaway from the information we have.
Yeah.
So the irresponsibility involved with saying, this is our political enemies, and they want us all dead like this.
Right.
I mean, that's staggeringly irresponsible.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I wanted to bring up how much I saw of the right talking about how the left was celebrating.
Yes.
And I feel like I didn't really see a lot of that. I felt like I saw some dark humor for sure. Obviously, I was in some dark places and stuff. I served in the Marine Corps, and we make a lot of weird jokes about death that are very dark when there's like stressful times. I think that's kind of just like natural. Some people just kind of gravitate to that super dark humor, but I don't think I saw people that were like, wow, really great job that this happened. This is awesome that this has happened.
But I'll tell you again, this is something I think is really important to remember, is we're coming to terms with being in this world that's terminally online, and that everybody feels very comfortable broadcasting what used to just be personal thoughts that you might share, like you said, in a Marine barracks.
Right.
And now all of a sudden people feel like, well, I'll just turn my phone around and do it with my group online or whatever. And I'm certain if you go to 4chan or 8chan, you're going to be able to see some dark things when somebody on the left dies. We live in a world where you're going to be able to find that.
Oh,
and that's
absolutely.
where I think the weaponization of it comes. If you go and
You're
search
right.
for it, and then you try to say, look, this is them.
This is all of them.
Yes. And the question that you have to beg is, when you say they, who are you talking about? And it becomes clear. It became very clear at that memorial this weekend. It's anyone who's not MAGA. It's anybody who doesn't have the red hat. If they didn't
And
vote
just to be
for
clear,
us-
we are not celebrating the death of anybody.
No.
And I shouldn't have to say this, but I am against all fucking violence.
Yeah,
like
of
I don't
course.
want anybody to get hurt. Okay, I would prefer that everyone just argues it out. And I think that's mostly what Charlie Kirk believed too. Even though that's probably the only thing I would ever agree with him about. But just to be clear, totally against that sort of shit.
Yes, and it is a shame that a wife lost a husband, that two children lost a father. That should not have been taken away from them in this.
Yeah, I
manner.
mean, in a perfect world, he would have got hit with a milkshake and embarrassed in
Right.
front of a crowd. Okay, in a perfect world, that's what would have happened. Okay, and then
That's how they do it in the UK.
Yeah, and that would have been the big news. Is like, oh,
Right.
look, he got strawberry milkshake on his face or whatever. That would be perfect. But I think let's get into your article real quick. The weaponization of Charlie Kirk. What are some of the things besides just calling out the left that the right, the MAGA right, is doing to weaponize this tragedy?
Well, there's certainly going, and I did a follow-up column called MAGA's Continuing War on Free Speech.
Yeah.
And, they're certainly trying to weaponize, and this is the complete irony, and I don't find myself agreeing with Tucker Carlson very often, but he did an episode that he dedicated to Charlie Kirk, and he, in it, said, if a year from now we're having hate speech laws in our country, and we're using Charlie Kirk's name to justify them, he said, quote, there would never be a more justified time for civil disobedience. And there never will be. And I agree with him on that because, again, Charlie Kirk said there's no such thing as hate speech. That is not legally defined. There's abhorrent speech, there's bad speech, but it's never illegal. And
Right.
the idea, yeah. So, but very quickly you had Pam Bondi go and say we need to go after hate speech, and you had Stephen Miller, and the other part too. I'd be very curious to know if Stephen Miller, he's in a made-up position where he's Trump's
Some bullshit position, yeah.
policy, but he's probably the most dangerous man within the administration because he's very busy and he's got his hands in everything. He's really the guy behind a lot of these ICE raids. He's the guy that said we're not sweeping up enough people. We need to go to 7-Elevens and Home Depots.
Right.
So somebody that's really dark. And he went on. So the day after the shooting, I believe it was, or 2 days after, the following Monday it was, I'm sorry, Vice President J.D. Vance hosted Kirk's podcast from the White House.
Which is strange.
Yes, very strange. Vance flew out on Air Force 2 to pick up the body and fly it back. And I think that's another thing that, like, some people.
We have soldiers that don't get that treatment.
Yeah, that's what some people I think were reacting to when they wanted to say look, this is what Charlie Kirk said about this, that, and the other thing. And some people say, well, that's distasteful in the moments of their death. But I think people are looking and saying, look, there was another school shooting the same day.
The exact same day.
Which, it turns out, when you look at that shooter, he expressed far-right sort of neo-Nazi ideology. Nobody on the left was saying, look, they want us dead. They want our children dead. They want to shoot them in schools. That would have been the equivalent of that.
Even the person that carried out the Catholic school shooting a week or two before that was also seemed like very I wouldn't even say MAGA, just like straight up neo-Nazi.
Right.
It was just like a lot of anti-Semitism and shit like that. So, I mean, obviously there is a lot of violence from the far right, and that's
demonstrably, John. Demonstrably.
That's not even an opinion. That's like from the Department of Homeland Security.
Yes. And by the way, that's been deleted.
Oh, they've deleted that study?
Pulled, right? Yeah. But we have many more, and they all land, if you aggregate them, that about 75% at least, and that's being very generous, about 75%, and that's using the most generous terms of where they right or not, about 75% of political violence, comes from the right. That's demonstrable. I'm not saying that all right people want violence.
Absolutely not.
Nothing like that. But the idea to say it mostly comes from the left is just patently absurd.
Yeah, it's a weaponization, and we're very quickly seeing some of the effects of this weaponization, and the number one example is Jimmy Kimmel being taken off the air for a week. He will be back. If you're listening to this now, he's already back.
Well, let's see.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, because
he's going back on ABC tomorrow. But here's the thing: if Sinclair and Nexstar, which together own the vast majority of ABC
almost
affiliates,
50%, right?
Yeah, they're number 1 and 2. Just in ABC, they own several other. They own NBC outlets, CBS outlets. But if they say, "Well, we're just not going to show it," which they can, if they preempt it,
right? They can do it.
That's a lot of ad revenue. Then we'll see whether or not he stays on the air. That'll be a big test,
right? Everybody keeps talking about, and we'll get more into why this happened in a second. But everybody keeps talking about broadcast ratings and things like that, but. I think anybody that works in media realizes that a show like this, it's not to generate ad revenue. The show is the advertisement. It's an advertisement for a movie studio, and every major movie studio has at least one program.
That's a great point, because who comes on for the interviews? What are they promoting?
It's their IP. Yeah, it's their intellectual property that's being promoted at all times. And of course, obviously, they trade back and forth. Like Paramount, you take our movie studio or our movie stars this week, and we'll take your movie stars, and we'll switch them back and forth every once in a while.
But you're right; it's not a straight up ledger, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not like Breaking Bad or like a weekly drama or a comedy sitcom or whatever that is just about entertainment. It's a monologue with a 60-minute advertisement afterwards, and that on top of the type of numbers that these shows pull on like YouTube and
that's
stuff.
Another thing that always gets left out and it annoys me is that you'll have like big podcasts say
he has like 20 million subscribers.
Yes. So a big podcast will say, well, they only do 200,000 people a night in the key demographic. We do like 700,000 on YouTube. So like we're kind of big. And it's like, no, because go look at what they're doing on YouTube as well. Yeah, and that's always left out.
Yeah, they're doing 50 or 100 million views a month on YouTube. Exactly. And they're selling ads on that as well.
Yes.
Obviously, they're not getting as much as what they would get from like a network affiliate or whatever. But
no, and there's no question that the medium is not what it was 20 years ago. Nobody's arguing that. But the idea that it's just, not worth having on is patently absurd as well.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to see fucking interviews with movie stars.
Right.
Sorry, that's just the way our country is. We just love it. I mean, that's how a lot of countries are. But let's get into real quick about what Jimmy Kimmel actually said. And I was honestly shocked because I thought it was going to be like a super crass joke of some kind. And when I went to watch it, I had to like go back and make sure that I was watching the correct thing because I couldn't find the offensive part.
Well, what do you think? If you listen to what Carr said was the reason, the part about him saying the shooter was coming from the right. And the rest of the joke, that wasn't really the joke part. The joke part was Trump's reaction.
It was making fun of the president
Yes.
for not giving a shit about anybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
He pointed out what a malignant narcissist does
Exactly.
when confronted with anything other than a question about themselves, which was, Mr. President, a day and a half after, first, my condolences on the loss of your good friend. A day and a half later, how are you holding up? And the president responded, pretty good, I think. And if you look right over there, you'll see the trucks. We're building a ballroom. It's building the best ballroom. As you know, they've wanted one for like 150 years.
Yeah.
And it was embarrassing. And I think that's what Jimmy Kimmel's being punished for.
Exactly. I think so. I think so. 100%. It's. I mean, he went on stage and he made fun of the president like he does every single night for the past decade, and he was punished for it in this instance because of the weaponization of this tragedy.
Yes.
Like you've been talking about.
Now, to go back what I said about Stephen Miller, he said on the podcast with Vance that the last thing Charlie Kirk had said to him is, we really need to go after these groups on the left that fund the things that foment political violence. Now, Miller's been ringing this bell for a long time, and Trump echoes it a lot. And if you go to Project 2025...
which everybody a year ago said was complete bullshit.
Right? And then let me remind everybody that Mr. Carr, the FCC chair, authored the chapter on the FCC in Project 2025, and then he magically gets appointed FCC chair. He was just a regular one of the many commissioners.
I went and read read that chapter recently, and honestly, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
No, but you see, and a lot of Project 2025 is like that. If you want to actually really go down a rabbit hole, you should read a guy named Curtis Yarvin. He is...
Yes, I have read some of
Okay,
the
so
Curtis
he's like their
Yarvin, but
celebrated...
please explain.
He's like their celebrated intellectual on the far right. He is another guy that Peter Thiel made rich. There's a theme in that, too. There's a lot of people who weren't millionaires until they met Peter Thiel, and then he liked kind of the cut of their jib, and then they became millionaires, and they kept saying all the things that Mr. Thiel likes so much.
Right.
Now, Yarvin is a lot more explicit, and that's where a lot of the Project 2025 stuff really comes from.
Yeah, well, he's the one that's advocating for just like if a judge says you can't do that, just ignore it and see what happens.
It's called the unitary executive theory. And what it believes is that the president is above all else because as commander-in-chief, he's not really subject to the courts because he's the head lawmaker in the country.
Right.
And as commander-in-chief, he can't really be questioned. And that even spending appropriations are really just ceilings, and it's up to him whether or not he spends the funds that Congress appropriated. And Yarvin uses this term called the cathedral, and he uses this to talk about the media, which he says is all left-wing and against us, the courts, the universities who just churn out people with the wrong ideology.
Which Orange Man parrots quite a bit.
Yes. So that's where you see Project 2025 is like this soft pitch version of that. But what they're really trying to do...
It's the not trying to cuss in church version.
Yes. And they're trying to get rid of any form of opposition. They want to get to a point where the unitary executive, and Yarvin has used this term, more of a monarchy. Right. So they really want to get to a point where you have one guy because, the country's just so big and complicated, you need a CEO president. Silicon Valley likes that. CEO energy they talk about all the time. And Silicon Valley hated Trump. Hated him.
Well, and he hated them.
Yes. But they got wise to one thing. They said, you know what? We have a once in a lifetime opportunity for whatever reason. He stirs up the mob, and he might be our only opportunity, our only vessel to shift from the democracy we have now to something very, very different, to this pseudo monarchy. And that's what I think you're seeing unfold. When you have Trump what was he, this morning or yesterday, directly at AG Pam Bondi, and said that we all know, everyone knows Letitia James is guilty as hell, James Comey's guilty as hell, Adam Schiff is guilty as hell, and none of them are in jail yet. and we look really bad because of this. He's
And they fired the guy that
Yes.
decided that there was no sufficient
case.
evidence to prosecute them.
Yeah.
He's gone.
The U.S. attorney for the Northern Virginia district, and now he put in a Trump sycophant, a female attorney who I don't know why anybody would take that job, because you're just going to be, you just see
You're
over,
gonna be shit on for sure.
Yes, you see over and over, like the expectations. We've seen everybody from who was the first one? Jeff Sessions. There was somebody else in there briefly, and then there was Bill Barr. Now the next time around, you have Pam Bondi, who you can't find a bigger sycophant than Pam Bondi, and even she's like, I don't know what to say.
I don't know what to do.
Right? So the job is clearly just lock up my enemies. Come up with some reason.
Figure it out, yeah.
Yeah. And that's what we're looking at. But we're literally at the point now, this is how fast this is unfolding. We're literally at the point now where the president is saying, why aren't my enemies in jail yet? So it's very clear that's what he wants. This, to me, is The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, it's happening really fast. And one of the interviews that I watched recently was Jon Stewart was interviewing the Nobel Peace Prize winning journalist from the Philippines. I forget her name right now. And
Yes, I saw that.
she was describing how this is exactly the same thing that happened
Duterte, yes.
with Duterte.
Duarte. Yeah, Duarte, that's it,
Duarte in the Philippines, and how it happened exactly this fast. How long? What is it? Where were we? 9 months in?
We're just over 9 months into it.
Yeah, we're just 9 months in, and it's already happening this fast. And she pointed out that I didn't even think about it, but he's already started the extrajudicial killings.
Yes.
He's already killing Venezuelan boats that supposedly have fentanyl on them. They're destroying the boats. There's no trial. There's no capture. There's no war. They're not attacking our Coast Guard or anything like that, but they're just being wiped off the map without any due process whatsoever. So it's scary how fast it's happening.
We have our own secret police already with masks who are disappearing people. Sometimes they're American citizens. We don't get to ask, where are they? Can we see them?
There was an American soldier that was detained and left to starve and shit in his pants in a cage.
Mm-hmm. People's phones have been checked by customs.
Yeah.
A guy was stopped from having a J.D. Vance meme on his phone.
Yeah, it's really weird how fast they're coming for the free speech. And Jimmy Kimmel obviously is the first one. But I don't think it's...
Well, and look at the chilling effect too, because then you had Carr say, we might have to take a look at The View, which is on the same network. It's also on ABC. And then the next morning, I checked to see how they handled the whole Jimmy Kimmel situation. They didn't mention it.
Yeah, they didn't say anything.
So that's the real... So what you end up with it in a country like Russia is a handful of media companies that are owned by a bunch of Putin's friends, and slowly people fall in line and realize it's the only way to do business now, or they get told, you should probably sell your company to this guy, my friend.
Right.
And that's what they do, because the other thing is, well, if you don't take it, in Russia what they just do is they say, we found corruption. We're seizing all your assets.
We're seizing it.
We found corruption. You don't have any money anymore.
That's what they're doing with TikTok right now.
Yeah.
TikTok is like a huge voice for like young people on the left. Well, not necessarily a voice, but a platform for them to speak out for the things that they're doing.
So basically what we said is, China, you can keep the algorithm. My buddies get the money.
Right.
And we get to put in a former IDF person as your censor. And we don't think you'll be as anti-Gaza.
Right, exactly. So it's a scary situation, and I appreciate people like you that are still sticking your neck out there
While it's legal.
while it's still legal, because there's been a lot of people that have been threatened and threatened to be removed from their jobs, and you're one of them. So there's an organized...
There's a well-funded campaign from the local Republican Party in Manatee County.
To get rid of you.
Yes.
And so explain what your position of the paper is. I know you're an opinion
I'm the editor of the paper, and I write the Sunday opinion column.
Okay. So you're in charge of the paper.
Yeah. And I'm very fortunate that, and my publisher is a 22-year Manatee County commissioner who was a Republican, still is a Republican, and he does not support Donald Trump, but he is a
Republicans
Republican.
are traditionally very pro free speech.
Yes. And he started the paper. He actually was the first victim. He got beaten in 2012, the first election after Citizens United. And developers spent back then $250,000 on a local county commission race to get him off because he was losing 6-1 on every vote, but they hated just the fact that he was mentioning his opinion on why a development might not be a great idea because of environmental reasons, whatever the case was. That's how, theatrical politics have gotten. But I'm very fortunate that, he has my back, and he was very quick. He's like, so, you're not getting fired. That's never happening. I appreciate what you do. And I'm not backing down. I'm not closing the paper down. That's really what they want. They want to impugn us. The whole attack on this is really simple. They want to tar us so that the next election cycle, our endorsements against non-developer puppets, they want to use and say, oh, that's that paper that, quote, as they said, it was dancing on Charlie Kirk's grave.
Yeah, that's that's what they're using for when obviously it's not even a very liberal newspaper.
No, there was a paragraph in there when I said, who is Charlie Kirk? And I said about the Turning Points USA and the college campus. But then I also said the Charlie Kirk show, I said, which was kind of a rehashing of the far right Rush Limbaugh type thing aimed at a younger generation.
Rush Limbaugh
yes,
for kids.
It was. But I said with the same kind of racially bigoted, anti-LGBT, pro Second Amendment, sometimes anti-Semitic lean to it. And I had examples of all the stuff.
Right. You can cite it.
Yes. And people are like, no, he's just some guy that was out there trying to talk to people and bring people together. And it's not true.
It isn't true. I mean, he profited off of divisiveness.
Yes,
and
for
that's
sure.
what a lot of this I don't know whether they call it like the manosphere
Yes.
or the right wing influencers or whatever. But it's profiting off of outrage. And Rush Limbaugh did invent it, but it's been perfected since. And people are
I
making
would
a lot of
say-
money off of it.
And there was a lot, even when they said he was having debates and conversations, and these are some examples I used, was, if you want to have a conversation like the one topic where he talked about DEI, and if you want to have a conversation about whether or not we need affirmative action anymore, if you want to have a conversation about whether DEI is always appropriately implemented, I'm here for that conversation. I'm absolutely here for that conversation. And I think there's some credible things that you can discuss about how maybe the implementation, maybe affirmative action is no longer necessary. Maybe the implementation of a lot of DEI programs is not beneficial. But when you say things then, first of all, when you're 4 white guys sitting around talking about it,
Right.
to an audience of almost exclusively young, disaffected white guys, and then you say in that conversation, look, if I see Letitia flying the train, that's coded racially bigoted language.
Sure. Yeah,
As white guys, we know what somebody means when they say Letitia to a bunch of white people. That is deliberately
Well, yeah,
constructed.
I grew up in Florida, so
Yeah, there you
so
go.
I know racist dog whistles.
Right. So what you're clearly not having the kind of conversation we're talking about then, and you're clearly not trying to bring people together. There's no black person that's going to hear that and say, he made a fair point.
Not unless you're the Hodge twins or something.
Right. But I mean, even when you're the Hodge twins, I would go more toward I've heard Glenn Lowry, a respectable conservative podcaster, who's a college professor, John McWhorter, guys like that having that conversation, or bring them in and debate them on that issue. But
Well, it's easier to debate teenagers.
yeah, of course. And that's the other part too, is that those are all carefully constructed, carefully edited and clipped things. And you just look at the thumbnails for them, and it's Charlie owns a pierced blue-haired liberal on trans
and
issues.
She made a face.
Yeah.
And then that face looks perfect on the clip or whatever.
So it's clearly not to be like, oh, let's go have a conversation with that community and try to do outreach and
It's
bring
not-
people
It's
together.
not bringing anyone together.
No, it's hate. People are hate watching it based on the thumbnail.
Right.
And
And-
it's reinforcing prejudices that they have for the reason of bringing them into the MAGA movement.
Right, exactly, and I just don't think I don't think most of these diversity programs result in unqualified people being appointed to positions.
No, and that was another one that I took issue with. Was he made the comment about Supreme Court Justice Jackson, Michelle Obama, Joy
Right.
Reid, and
Like very educated people.
Yes, and they said we benefited at times from affirmative action. What they meant by that was
they got a fair shot.
yes, when we couldn't complete a level playing field because people were just like, nope, door closed, and then somebody had to eventually say, hey, you got to open the door a little bit, right? And we were allowed in. We thrived and went to the top. Now he took that to say, well, am I saying right? Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Yes.
She's a Supreme Court. No, she's not. What she was saying is she wouldn't have gotten into a law school on a level playing field because
she wouldn't have got the clerk.
Yes.
In a certain high level position.
Yes, and then you get to that
because
point.
she was able to even just get the access to that level of education.
And then when he says, yeah, we know because you clearly don't have the brain power to be a person to be taken seriously, it's another racial dog whistle.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, he didn't say that about all black women. People are taken out of context. It's like, no, he said it about 4 of the most intelligent, accomplished ones that he could think of. What do you think he thinks of Letitia?
Yeah, what do you think he thinks of the person that's working at the Wawa?
Right,
You know,
right.
like... It's ridiculous. I don't know. I honestly am getting scared at this point because it just seems like everything's swinging so far right and so far. I appreciate all the actors that are signing that petition, pushing back against it, and I think it's kind of cool that everybody's canceling their Disney Plus subscriptions.
Well,
and stuff.
listen, that's another big part to look at what's being weaponized is that these conglomerates, the reason, first of all, we should note that Nexstar and Sinclair are both MAGA aligned in their ownership. So they are very right wing.
And they do paid programming for right wing companies.
And they do scripted op-eds that each of the anchors have to read and so forth.
And then they put a little tiny line at the bottom that says that it's paid programming. This is almost translucent white font.
Yes. So you have that to start with. And now Nexstar is trying to acquire another affiliate group that would take it over the 38% maximum that you could have, which is already way higher than it used to be. You used to not be able to own a radio station and a newspaper in the same city.
Yeah, and then I think that makes sense.
Yes, it absolutely does. Right now, there's 80% of all media is owned by 5 companies. And as they try to converge more, they need exceptions. They need these to get approved by the Trump administration. So there's a wink nod saying, you want to be on our side. And this has been shown by, with when Larry Ellison, with the Paramount deal. Disney has another merger coming up. They want to buy, Fubo?
Or NFL Network or something?
No, it's, I'm saying it wrong. It's not Fubo's closed, but
Fubo, no.
Fubo, maybe?
It's the television streaming network. Yeah.
They're going to need approval for that. Fubo. They're going to need approval for that. So they're being very clear how transactional they are. That if you want these things to go well, look at what Meta had to do when they were facing the problems with Instagram. So they went and kissed the ring. We had remember that hot mic moment where Trump asked that was asinine. First of all, when you go and you watch those cabinet meetings where they all have to go through that humiliation ritual where they go around the table and say, Mr. Trump, first of all, I want to thank you for blah, blah. I mean, it's so North Korean. Then they had all the tech gurus in 2 weeks ago and they had to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And then
everybody's got to take their turn kissing the cheeks.
Yeah. And then Trump said, and Mark, to Zuckerberg, Mark, how much money are you guys investing this year or domestically? And he's like cut off guard. He goes, $600 million. Oh, see, great. And then there's a hot mic moment later where he goes, oh, you caught me off guard there. I didn't know what number you wanted me to say.
I'll just say whatever. Yeah, just tell me what to say.
Media. It doesn't have to be correct.
Yeah,
nobody's fact checking here.
Well, I think that's good to point out because it's good to notice that now when all of these companies, say 10 years ago, were definitely kissing the left's ass and doing initiatives that they didn't actually fucking care about. And, the thing about DEI policies is that they only work if the company actually gives a fuck if they work, Otherwise, it's just a dog and pony show, and they can skirt around it very easily.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. I'll share an analogy real quick. I had an employer one time who was a good guy, older white guy, did real well, self-made. And he said to me something about affirmative action and how I don't think it's necessary. And this was like 20 years ago, where I would have said we were in a very different place than we are now. And I said, let me just give you one example. I said, what if when you were hiring me, there was somebody that was just tit for tat, you couldn't really distinguish between it, so you were like, if the one guy wasn't here, the other guy'd be fine.
Right.
But he was black and I was white. Is it possible that there'd be a part of you that said to yourself, and I don't find you to be a racist person, but is there a part of you maybe that would say, I think Mitch and I just might connect a little bit better. We might have an easier time communicating just because we have some more of the same experiences. He goes, yeah, sure, but I don't think that's racist. And I said, neither do I. And he goes, and I think that if the owner was black, he might do the same thing. And I said, I agree with that. That's possible as well.
Sure.
I said, but would you consider that because pre-1964 with the Civil Rights Act, that now here we are just a generation and a half later, that almost all the guys sitting in the chair on your end are white.
Yeah.
So that means, and again, I grew up in the dirt poor Appalachian mountains in Pennsylvania with food stamps and everything else, and I still am self-aware enough to understand that dynamic alone has given me the advantage a number of times in my life, I'm sure. So
even if it's just a slight advantage,
tiniest little one,
even if it got you through the threshold and it got to have a handshake, it gave you that slightly.
And if you aggregate that over generations and time and place all throughout a country, you can come up with a situation that says, and that's the systemic part. Not systemic meaning the system's built to be that way, but to mean there's these lingering elements of the way things used to be that we still should look at and say, hey, should we maybe level the playing field here a little bit to make these up? And that's what most of those programs sought to do, and they were doing well.
Yeah, for the most part, as long as like I said, as long as the company or the organization is trying, then I think these policies do work well. One of the things I remember reading one of the Freakonomics books, and those economists I think they did a chapter with another economist that basically studied white names versus black names on resumes or whatever, and it was definitely like if someone had an obvious black name, they were definitely called way less. And I think what were they sending out, like fake resumes or something like that? Yeah, they were sending out fake resumes just to test the corporations. So it definitely fucking happens.
No question.
Before we get out of here, I know I told you I wasn't going to keep you too long, but you're interesting to talk to.
Appreciate it. You as well.
Can you quick drop your, for the listeners, can you drop your Instagram and your newspaper and your novels that we could check out?
Yes, everything is under Mitch Maley, and the www.thebradentontimes.com is our website where you can see all of my columns each week. They come out every Sunday. And or
they could write to the newspaper if they want you fired as well.
For sure. Publisher at thebradentontimes.com. He's got a lot to sift through, though. It might be a while before he gets a response to you. And then also my most recent book is on the 1921 racial massacre in Tulsa, Oklahoma, called Burn Black Wall Street Burn, which is available everywhere, including the audiobook on all audio platforms.
Who does the audiobook for that?
I read it myself.
You read it yourself.
Yes.
How was that process?
Grueling. It was grueling. It was a lot. It was a lot of talking, and but it was fulfilling because I really felt like I wanted to be able to put the passion of the project into the reading of it, and I knew that kind of.
I might have to have you back just to talk about that, just to do a whole episode about that book, because I find that topic really interesting, because it's just something a guy my age they didn't teach that in school or anything like that. Like one of the worst atrocities.
I think it's the most least known major historical event in the United States. Probably. I didn't learn about it until probably about 2015. I became obsessed about it. I was going to write an article about it. Then it grew to a magazine article, and then eventually it grew to a significantly larger book than I've ever written before, just going down the rabbit hole with it. And I wrote it as what I would call historical dramatization. So it's not historical fiction because everything is constructed with complete accuracy.
Okay.
But there were already academic books done on it, and I wanted to tell it as a story. So there is like imagined conversations about real events, a few composite characters that needed to be made primarily out of accounts, but primarily since because so many of the villains in the story were never brought to justice, and their names aren't known.
Yeah, well, they were all hiding under white hoods.
Correct.
Yeah, there's been a couple of dramatizations in like movies and TV shows and stuff.
Small parts, like it appeared in that HBO, the superhero one.
Watchmen.
Yes.
Watchmen.
Was,
that's what I was gonna say. It's like they show the day of, but
Yeah.
they don't like I'm assuming this gets into a little bit more to the build up and how it actually occurred.
yes, the only time the continental United States was ever bombed by airplanes.
Really?
Yes.
That's the only time, and we did it to our own
ourselves.
selves. Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense.
And my next book is called Fish Kill. It will be coming out this year, and that is set locally in a fictional town that Mullet County, which is
Mullet County. Okay.
Mullet County, and it will be familiar to many of the purveyors of local politics.
So we got the next Carl Hysen right here.
This is my Carl Hysen book.
Yeah,
yes.
this is your Carl
People kept
Hysen.
asking me, like, why don't you write? Like, why don't you take these experiences and turn something like about Florida politics? And at first I was like, I'm just so like I like to escape that when I write fiction. Like I want to go into a world that has
I want to
nothing to do
pretend
with it.
something better than this.
Right? But the last 2 years have just been so absurd that it's like you almost can't lampoon it. So I was like, I have to come up with a fictional story to incorporate some of that absurdity. So I'm really happy with this one, and we're pretty confident it'll be out by the end of the year. I'm just putting the finishing touches
Well,
on.
if you need me to be one of the alpha readers,
That would be great.
I'll read it and I'll put a review up before it
That
comes
would be
out.
great.
If you
I would
want,
appreciate
I'll
that.
review it on this show.
For sure, that would be excellent.
That would be awesome. Thank you so much, Mitch, for being
My pleasure.
here. I appreciate you talking with me. I mostly just have comedians on the show, and I just want.
I'm a fan, by the way. I love the watch.
Thank you. So I just had to have somebody smart to talk about this issue. I need to have a smart person every once in a while. That's what people are suggesting. So I'd love to have you back if you enjoyed yourself. And,
Yes, for sure. My pleasure.
check out Mitch's books. Check out his newspaper, and please subscribe to the Something Planet podcast. And that is it. We're gonna play us out with another theme song. Thanks for being here.
When this big old world got you feeling down, you've lived here for years, still feel new in town. When the stress begins, just pop those earbuds in. Hanging out with John Jay, watch your troubles drifting away. Something planted in your ears, tears are in your eyes. You can't hear your doorbell ring, you can't hear your baby cry.